This is my experience with The Last of Us Part 2. I want to start off by saying this. This is my experience and not reflective for the game or somebody else's experience. Thank you for understanding. What I'm going to be talking about in this video is going to contain major spoilers for the first and second game. If you haven't played those yet, or you are willing to accept that, we may start the video. The Last of Us is one of my favorite games of all time. It made me appreciate the art of finer storytelling in games. The adventure of Joel and Ellie going across the country is a story I care deeply about and will hold close to me. There was this magic about the first game, the way it seamlessly made you care for the characters, the way it made you interested in the lore of this world. Going into this game, I knew close to nothing about it. By the time I was finished, I was blown away by what the team at Naughty Dog pulled off. I loved the first game to death and played through it countless times. It just has this charm that you can play through it over and over. That's why, back in 2016, and Naughty Dog revealed another chapter into The Last of Us, I was more than ecstatic. The hype was real. After the ending of the first game, I was curious to see where the story could go. Would we be seeing more from Joel and Ellie, or will we find a new pair of people and explore their relationship? Who knew? The possibilities felt endless. The world that Naughty Dog had built was ripe with stories to tell, and I was eager to immerse myself back into the world. More and more trailers were being released as time went by, and more hype was being created. Even myself was intrigued to see what we'd be exploring next. By the time The Last of Us Part 2 came out, there was no way to describe how hyped I was for the game. Despite the numerous leaks and YouTubers getting their hands on it early, I managed to go into it completely blind. I was ready to get back into the world and see what waited for me. Everything leading up to this game has had me yearning to find out what happens. Whenever I got to the loading screen, there was a clear mood shift. Something a bit more depressing than the lone windowsill from the first game. There was a single empty boat gently rocking on the waves. There wasn't much else besides this. To me, it felt depressing. I felt alone with the doom and gloom all around me. With that in mind, though, there was nothing that was going to prepare me for what this game had in store. So I started the game and began playing through it. Now, I have some strong opinions about this game's story, so this is heavily biased. A lot of what I talk about won't make any sense unless you've played this game or have decided to watch it. Now let's get this straight off the back. I personally didn't care for the story of this game, and from what I've watched and read, a lot of other people didn't as well. Many of the complaints come from Joel's death, but there were others as well, such as pacing issues, and the game almost downright forcing you to like Abby, Joel's murderer. And I share some of these criticisms as well. Some parts of this game felt like they just went on forever. I started feeling that by the time that Abby made it to the theater, and we had to play through her flashbacks and the same 3 days of Seattle, but from her perspective. Now let's talk about these issues and why they made me feel the way they did. Let's start off with Abby's character. Now, in a vacuum, I think Abby is a fine character. Ignoring the fact that she killed Joel, I think her character is fine. But it is because of the fact that she did that. I deeply despised playing as her and going through her part of the game. It also just kept making me more and more angry every time the game tried to convince us what a great person she is. Abby plays with dogs. Abby good. Ellie kills dogs. Ellie bad. And it was this type of crap that kept getting on my nerves and made her even more dislikable. I will admit though, I did like the story of her saving some Seraphites and developing a bond with them, but Joel's death scene was just engraved into my mind. How could I forgive her for killing one of my favorite characters of all time? And that I spent an entire game with, watching him grow as a person and slowly accepting Ellie and learning that the world isn't all that bad. How can I forgive her for that when all I see is her beating and torturing him to death? After that scene, she never brings it up again. She never regrets what she did. Even when Ellie killed all of her friends, she still does not show the slightest remorse for what she has done. So, after this, every time I played through her sections, I felt nothing but pessimistic anger towards her. No matter how much she did, or the game convinced me that she was a saint that could do no wrong, I still disliked her. In my honest opinion, Abby should have gotten her own game with her own story. Now look, if this game had to be the story that it had to be, I really wish Joel's death was handled better. It was upsetting seeing a beloved character being murdered like some one-off side character. Other issues that others had, including myself, were pacing issues. By the time I got to Abby's story, I was bored. I had to play as a character I didn't really care for, witness a bunch of stuff that didn't really matter because most of it felt like filler backstory, and I don't know if they were trying to make you feel bad about killing Abby's friends, or if they were trying to develop their characters, but that wouldn't matter, because by that point in the game, all of them were dead. Either we killed them as Ellie, or Tommy did it. In my honest opinion, though, it kind of felt like I was playing through a DLC, except I was forced to play the DLC to see the end of the main game. Abby's sections were mostly flashbacks and rehashes of what Ellie did through Seattle Day 1 through 3. So, I felt like I was just playing through Seattle again, but, you know, as Abby. The end part of the game wasn't too bad, probably because it was my favorite setting of the game. Santa Barbara is absolutely gorgeous, and I love the colors and everything about that area. And the last part just felt really fun to play through. My personal favorite was going through the Rattler's base, or whatever you would call it, and you just felt like you had so many combat options. You could like release the infected on the people, or you could sneak around and just shoot. It was a fun time. I had a lot of fun going through that. Now let's talk about that ending. In the end, you find a weakened Abby, and Ellie decides to cut Abby and Lev down to let them almost escape. But then Ellie was like, nah, we's gonna fight now, bro. So you play this ring-style melee combat game. It kind of reminds me of the sword fighting in Uncharted 4, but the setting wasn't as cool, and there was little to no dialogue, just grunts and uncomfortable noises. Yeah, that was a thing. This was what the game was leading up to. This is the payoff of all of our efforts. This is the end. Finally! Ellie has Abby underwater, and Ellie was just about to kill her when she sees Joel. Lets Abby get up and escape as she sits there crying, sitting there, a broken character ruined by what Abby did to her. You want to know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of that one scene from Batman v Superman. Yeah, I'm bringing up that movie and, comparing it to this scene where Batman was right there about to kill Superman when Superman says, "Kill Martha." And then, Lois comes in and was like, "It's his mother's name!" And guess what? Batman's mom was also named Martha. So Batman decides not to kill him, and they team up, I guess? Yeah, that's what this reminds me of. Just it made no sense, and it was weird, and yeah. Revenge is bad, I guess, but Abby got her revenge, and that was pretty good for her, considering that she didn't feel bad about it afterwards. Ellie tries to get revenge though, and it's like the worst thing in the world. Like, I wish there was an option to finish it so that there was some kind of payoff, but no. Ellie goes back to the house with Dina and JJ gone. She tries to play the guitar, but can't because Abby bit off her fingers, and she can no longer play the one song that connected her to Joel. She puts down the guitar and walks off, a broken character that has no resemblance of who she once was. And that is the end of The Last of Us Part 2. I kind of felt like the entire game was about Abby, and then Ellie and Joel were just the villains. You know how in movies most people like look at the villains and they're like, oh, they're so cool and edgy and they have like so much depth. And you know how like people do that and they just like the villains more because they have so much depth, like Thanos and the Joker. Yeah, this kind of felt like this thing here, except we were the bad guys like the entire time, and there was like no depth to us. Abby and Lev get off scot-free, and Ellie gets to be a shell of a character, and Joel dies in one of the most brutal, most disturbing, and unjust ways that a beloved character didn't deserve. I'm going to talk about other aspects of the game. Like, mechanically, gameplay-wise, I love this game. Personally, I was a fan of how the first game played, so pretty fun to me. I had a lot of fun. If you didn't really like how the first game played, there was not much different here. The game added the ability to go prone and have a manual jump now, which is cool, and it added some change. I enjoyed sneaking around, shooting, and having fun with the combat. The melee combat seemed to be much improved here with the added dodge button, so a lot of the gameplay was just a lot of quality of life stuff from the first game. Oh boy, visually, this is by far one of the best looking games on the PlayStation 4. And I would love to see how it looks on PlayStation 5. Seeing how they did that with the first Last of Us from PS3 to PS4. Everything was just a marvel to look at. If you're not much of a nerd in this type of stuff, it's just going to be a great looking game to you. Almost, if not all of the footage was captured by me on a base PlayStation 4. One of the 2013 models, in fact. And I still thought this game was absolutely gorgeous. Naughty Dog really flexed their muscles when it came to the detail in this game. Even minor things like the countless fat PlayStation 3s you can find have an insane amount of detail. Even though I didn't really care for the story, I absolutely loved looking at this game. Now, in terms of the audio, I'm not much of a sound designer nor an audiophile, but this game's music was fantastic. They had Gustavo Santaolalla, probably just butchered that name, return to do the score for this game, and it was fantastic, if not even better than the first game. It was pretty good. I mean, I like the first game's music, I like this game's music, so it was pretty good. He also has this cameo in the game, which was a pretty nice touch. I thought it was pretty cool. All of the sound effects were masterfully done, and audio is kind of this weird thing. Because if done right, you won't even question it, and you'll just accept it and kind of move on. But if it was done poorly, though, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Everything sounded wonderful to me, so huge props to the Naughty Dog sound team. In terms of glitches and bugs, I didn't really experience any. The game was pretty stable for me and ran fine in most cases. If some weird oddities happened during my playthrough, they didn't really bother me enough to make note of them. So this game was pretty stable on day one, which is wonderful to see considering we get a lot of games nowadays that need a day one patch and still run horribly at launch. I do have some minor nitpicks, and when I say minor nitpicks, I mean like they are really minor nitpicks. Like I really kind of had to like dig for these, and it doesn't really affect too much. So in the beginning of the game, when Joel was retelling the events of the first game, there was the part where Ellie and Joel are going to Pittsburgh. Yeah, they're supposed to be in a truck. I'm not too sure why they're not. Maybe they just forgot, or they wanted to make it seem like Joel forgot or something. I don't know. It was just something that struck me as odd and didn't really affect my experience with the game. What kinda did was the first time you encountered a bloater. And I just want to point out and say that bloaters are like 10 times more scarier in this game compared to the first. This game, they're like freaking tanks. They run through walls and they're terrifying in this game. Well, anyway, my issue is that when you're fighting the one in the flashback, you basically have to fail to progress. I spent the entire time running around wasting my ammo on the thing, trying to kill it, only to end up getting caught, and I thought I messed up, and I was about to actually reset, when Joel came in and killed it. And I was sitting there and I kind of felt cheated. And I was like, I didn't know I had to get caught. I feel like it kind of ruined that fight as well. In my opinion, I feel like you should never make the player purposely fail, because most gamers believe in their own ability to get past things, and this felt like that fight ruined that. Now, this is maybe not a minor nitpick to the game, but with something I've seen with other people talking about the game. So at the end of the game, you meet a new group called the Rattlers, and some people are saying they came out of nowhere and then they just felt thrown in, but from my perspective, it would feel a bit weird if there weren't other groups around the country. So the addition of the Rattlers kind of excited me, because it made me feel like there were more groups out there than just the Fireflies, Seraphites, Fedra, and the Wolf. I kind of like the idea of there being more groups than those, because it really just shows diversity and how other areas handled the outbreak, and I just thought it was a cool thing. Okay, and this is an extremely minor nitpick. There was this weird thing that really irked me. Whenever Dina and Ellie talked about the Fireflies, it felt like the Fireflies were limited to Boston. Like, whenever Ellie, brings it up, Dina will ask a question, Ellie was like, yeah, back in Boston, the Fireflies were this, this, and that. Where, in the first game, the Fireflies felt like they were nationwide. They were everywhere. There was Fedra, and then there was the Fireflies. There was no other groups. But this is the weird part. By the end of the second game, they kind of go back to that first thing where the Fireflies are starting to regroup, and they feel like they're a bit of everywhere. It was just something that was confusing to me. All in all, it took me about 25 hours or so to beat. I have 192 gigabytes worth of footage of this game, and I wouldn't say it was a waste, or that this is the worst game ever. I doubt that it has a whole lot of replay value like the first game had for me, but overall, I enjoyed my time I spent with the game. Even though some parts made me angry, sad, and various other emotions. If I had to rate this game on a scale to 1 to 10, I'd probably give it about a 6 or a 7. It's definitely an above average game. It may not have been the game I was waiting for or the game I was hoping for. All in all, it was pretty good. Thank you everybody for watching this. I hope all of you enjoyed. If you didn't, please share your opinions in the comments below. I don't make a whole lot of videos like this, and this is kind of like my first video, kind of dipping my toes into the water. This part's unscripted, by the way, so there's going to be a lot of rambling here. Yeah, I just want to thank all of you for watching. You don't necessarily have to agree. I just wanted to put a video out there sharing my experience with the game, and maybe it'll resonate with some of you out there. So, if you liked the video, please leave a like, and yeah, this is pretty fun video to make. If you guys want me to make more videos like this, please let me know in the comments, because this was actually a pretty fun video to make and develop. So, if you want me to make more videos about me sharing my experiences and thoughts about other games, I think I'll gladly do so. I hope to see all of you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.